Good morning and welcome back to Plaas TV. Aloes are wonderful plants. They are adaptable and flourish in the extremely dry areas of the Karoo, as well as the relatively wet eastern section of its distribution range. Aloes also have a wide range of uses. Plaas TV recently visited an aloe expert, Andy de Wet, to get a closer look at what the farming of these plants entail. We also have a chat to Magda de Toit about her women's diary, and Tony Wake is back on screen for another episode of Self-Defense Fridays. For now, over to Lisa for the news.
Welcome to today's news. Quarantine restrictions have been lifted on 9 of the 19 properties affected by foot and mouth disease in Limpopo. This is according to a statement issued by the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. Botswana had also recently lifted its precautionary ban on imports of live cattle from South Africa. Botswana had done this on condition that these cattle were first quarantined for at least 30 days, tested for foot and mouth during this time, and then exported under supervision of the two countries. Permission was granted to 9 feedlots from the safe slaughter of animals from affected premises at 2 abattoirs designated for this purpose. A goat in Mount Aloe recently gave birth to quintuplets. This is first in the Eastern Cape government's records. According to the farmer Rose Dangisa, it's not unusual for this goat to give birth to twins, but this is the first time she gave birth to 5 kids. Western Cape Minister of Agriculture Dr. Ivan Meyer recently handed over registered bulls to 7 small-scale beef producers. These bulls are sourced from the Western Cape's Department of Agriculture's Bull Distribution Project. The project aims to distribute bulls who have good genetic material to future commercial farmers in the Western Cape. The Bull Distribution Project was established in 2016 in collaboration with the Farmer Support and Development and Veterinary Services Programs of the Western Cape Department of Agriculture. The project ensures that quality breeding material is made available to the small-scale farmers. To date, 41 bulls have been distributed to 26 small-scale farmers. And that's today's news, but don't go away.
Simparica by Zuyetis, your best friend's best friend.
Hello, my name is Tiaan Hadams, and today Plaas TV is visiting the Aloe farm located outside the beautiful Hartbeespoort Dam in the Northwest Province. Today we are talking to Andy de Wet from de Wet Plant Breeders and what it takes to be an aloe farmer today. So Andy, I see that you have a lot of beautiful aloes here by the aloe farm, but obviously these ones are planted. Where do aloes occur naturally in the wild?
There are about 550 different species. They occur mainly southern and western Africa, right up to Socotra in the Arabian Peninsula, and there's many different species also in Madagascar.
So what prompted the interest in aloe, and a little bit of background about yourself?
I studied zoology and botany at varsity, so I'm a botanist. But while I was at varsity, my father was an avid gardener and he's always inspired me to garden. As a matter of fact, there's an aloe called Aloe Charles, very, very popular aloe that's named after my father. As a student, I got interested in aloes and I read the aloe books. And in the nature, you get some aloes that hybridize naturally. And I saw that and I thought, I can do better because I can pick the species I want to cross with each other. And that's where it started in 1973. And I've been making aloe hybrids every year since then unto today.
So hierso by die Aloe farm sien ons 'n verskriklike groot verskeidenheid variëteite met verskillende interessante name. Ek weet dat die name van hierdie plante is gewoonlik baie Latyns, maar dit wat ons sien hier by die Aloe farm is nie noodwendig Latyns nie. Kan jy bietjie meer uitbrei daarop?
Okay, so daar's 'n alwyn byvoorbeeld Bafana. Okay. Dis 'n geel alwyn wat baie sterk blom met groen blare. So ek het hom in 2010 vir die alwyn vir die sokker wêreldbeker het ek hom benaam en hom vrygestel daai jaar. Gelukkig perform hy baie beter as ons sokkerspan ook, né?
Maar ek sien dat jy's baie trots op wat jy doen, want daar's 'n hele paar van hierdie alwyne wat jou naam dra.
Ja, dis nie eintlik, dis maar 'n side issue amper vir my gewees. Ek hou daarvan om vir 'n plant 'n naam te gee wat spreek van die plant. Jy weet, so 'n mens, die seleksie van name is eintlik baie interessant. Ons het byvoorbeeld as vir die mense wat die program Willy Wally onthou, daar's 'n alwyn met baie sterk doring, so het ek Knarsus genoem, as gevolg van die dinosaur wat almal wil opvreet in daai program. So 'n mens kan baie fun hê met alwynname ook. Maar ons selekteer 'n naam en jy kry 'n botaniese naam soos Aloe pegleri of Marlotti kom in die veld voor, maar sodra ons 'n kruising gemaak het en ons vir hom 'n nuwe naam, moet ons vir hom registreer en kommersialiseer. Dan gee ons hom 'n naam soos Bafana of so iets. So Aloe Charles wat nou met my pa vernoem is, ek spot altyd en sê as sy naam Hendrik Pochempoel was, dan kon ek hom nie dit genoem het nie, byvoorbeeld. So 'n mens moet 'n lekker sterk naam hê wat die plant gaan help om dit te verkoop.
As an expert, what are the do's and don'ts when planting an aloe in your own garden?
All right, aloes occur in a lot of various different conditions in the nature. So they don't only occur in dry conditions. So what one has to do is when you select aloes for your garden, you've got to realize what kind of garden have you got. Fortunately, most of the cultivars we make are very easy to grow. They're selected for that. So they will grow in a wet garden, but they can always also withstand huge dry conditions. So it's an ideal plant then to plant, and it flowers so nicely in a dry garden. Water is becoming very scarce, and it will become a lot more scarce in the future. So it is an ideal water-wise plant to use in your garden.
Goeiedag kykers, in vandag se kommoditeitsmarkverslag kan daar gesien word dat rooi vleis verlede week redelik gemeng vertoon het met BSA2 karkasse wat effens toegeneem het, maar C-graad karkasse wat 0.6% gedaal het en die speenkalfprys wat ook week op week met 1.7% afgekom het. Wat skaapvleis aanbetref kan gesien word dat lammers effens duurder geword het die karkasse, terwyl C-grade se prys weer effens teruggesak het, maar die speenlamprys wat amper 4% afgeneem het week op week. Varkvleis het weer eens toegeneem met 1.7%. Die tweede wolveiling van die seisoen het weer eens swaar getrek en die indikatorprys is met 4.1% af, terwyl bokhaar se prys op die eerste veiling ook met 0.8% gedaal het. Wat die grane aanbetref het geelmielie se prys 1.5% toegeneem, terwyl koring swaar getrek het en 5.5% afgeneem het. Beide sonneblom en sojabone se pryse het effens gestyg. Goeie nuus is dat die wisselkoers versterk het die afgelope week met 1.1% teenoor die dollar en 1.2% teenoor die euro.
NutriFeeds, die formule vir sukses.
Ons kyk nou verder na ons gesprek met Andy de Wet oor die groei van alwynplante in Suid-Afrika.
So tell me a little bit more about the care of aloes in the garden.
Okay, aloes require, they've got 3 requirements mainly. Number 1 is they like full sun. We've got 1 or 2 that like a little bit of shade, but mostly they want the full sun. They'll flower better and they'll grow better. Number two is they don't like to stand with their feet in the water. So they'd have to have a little bit of drainage, but it doesn't have to be super drainage. And the third thing, which is pretty important that people don't always realize, is they like rich soil. If you put a lot of compost and some bone meal in the ground, the plants will set better roots, they'll grow better and they'll flower a lot better. Also, if you feed them throughout the summer, I normally like to feed them at the end of winter so that they can have a very good strong flush in summer. And I also like to feed them just before winter sets in so that the flowers that are initiated in the rosettes actually can actually develop much bigger and better.
So what contribution does the aloe provide in terms of the little ecosystem that it develops around itself?
And the habitat, the broader habitat as well.
Yes.
They make a massive contribution. If you notice, aloes flower mostly in winter. Many bird species are dependent on aloes for their nourishment in winter. So, and that is why they play a very important part of the broader habitat in winter. The birds rely on them and they rely on the birds to pollinate them as well. So if you want to plant aloes in your garden, you are sure to attract birds to your garden. And you'll also then contribute to their feeding in winter, which means that you'll broaden the habitat of the birds, that you'll increase the amount of birds that are in your surrounding areas. But they don't only contribute towards birds. There's a lot of insects that also, the bees collect a lot of the pollen and so on, and other insects as well as the leaves of the dry leaves of the aloe is also geckos and insects nest in there, birds nest in there. So it's heartbreaking to see that people dig out aloes and sell them next to the road, because wherever they remove the aloes from the habitat, you will have a drop in bird and insect population immediately. That is part of the reason why we make hybrids. We want to make plants that will perform much better in your garden, they'll flower much better, and they'll also grow, and they'll be easy to grow in your garden situation. But as your aloes will attract birds and insects to your garden, there are some pests and diseases that also know them, because they live on the plant as well. And for that kind of thing, it's probably a good idea to contact experts like ourselves that would give some guidance in that line.
Het jy wat dit vat om die 2020 Toyota SA nasionale jong afslaer te word? Wys ons jou stal en stuur vandag nog jou video inskrywing in. Heelwat pryse vir regstreekse wenners en ons groot wenner slaan 'n oorseese reis na Kanada los. WhatsApp jou naam en nommer na 066 231 2430 vir meer inligting. Inskrywing sluit 31 Augustus. Terme en voorwaardes geld. Standard Bank, voluit vorentoe.
Talle van ons het jaarliks uitgesien na 'n dagboek vir vroue wat deur Monsanto uitgegee is. Nou sinoniem met hierdie dagboek is niemand anders as Magda Toit, en sy kuier vandag hier in die ateljee. Sy het ook natuurlik talle jare vir Monsanto gewerk. Nou vanjaar word die dagboek onafhanklik uitgegee en sy gaan vir ons vertel waarna ons kan uitsien. Dit is natuurlik die ideale Kersgeskenk. Ek weet nie een van ons wil nou al aan Kersfees dink nie, maar dit is letterlik om die draai. Magda, die hoeveelste dagboek is dit wat jy nou geskryf het?
Hierdie is omtrent, as ek dit nou reg onthou, hier by die 15de dagboek. So ja, dit is nogal 'n lang pad wat ek in hierdie dagboek saamloop. So dit is vir my nogal ook weer 'n besonderse jaar om hom nou op my eie uit te gee. En ag ek terugvoer wat ek al die jare gekry het vir my gewys, daar is 'n behoefte daarin en ek moet voortgaan daarin.
So wat maak hierdie dagboek nou besonders? Wat kry mens alles in die dagboek?
Anders as net 'n gewone dagboek waar jy nou net jou vergaderings of notas in kan maak, het hierdie dagboek 52 weeklikse herdenkingsstukkies. Nou dit is nie so sappige stukkies soos wat mense baie van ek wil nou nie afskiet nie, maar hierdie het regtig 'n bietjie pitkos binnekant. En ek kyk hierdie jaar spesifiek na geloofsgroei. So baie keer sal mense sê, ja, maar ek is 'n gelowige en ek het nou my geloof, maar wat dan? Maar die Bybel sê tog vir ons, as jy nie groei in jou geloof nie, dan is dit eintlik dood, dan beteken dit niks. So ek het gaan kyk na 52 werkwoorde wat spesifiek toegepas kan word in jou geloofsgroei. So dis een deel van hierdie dagboek, is om hierdie dagstukkies of weeklikse stukkies te gee. Dan is daar natuurlik die gewone dagboek gedeeltes wat jy ook in 'n dagboek kry. Dan het ons ook inkleerprentjies. So terwyl jy nou dink oor jou geloofsgroei en oor hoe jou lewe is en wat aangaan, kan jy nou inkleer. En navorsing het gewys, hierdie aksie van inkleer maak jou brein oop sodat jy lekker kan dink. Dan is daar ook 'n lekker kort verhaal agter in die dagboek. Mense sommer net lekker kan lees, 'n paar gedigte. So dit is 'n lekker omvattende dagboek waar jy jou eie notas kan maak. Jy het jou dagstukkies, so dit is regtig alles in een dagboek.
Nou dis baie om oor te dink. Waar kry jy al jou idees?
Dit is moeilik om te antwoord want daar's nie een resep nie. So ek sal in 'n gesprek sit en iemand sal iets sê en dit trigger net iets in my brein en ek dink, wow, daar's so baie mense wat daaroor dink. Ek moet iets daaroor skryf. Of anders lees ek 'n boek en ek tel iets daarop uit. Of ek lees dalk net Bybel en ek dink, maar hierdie is 'n stukkie wat vir my baie beteken, dit sal dalk vir ander mense ook baie beteken. So daar's verskeie goed wat my brein half aan die gang sit om oor goed te skryf.
Nou, jy het genoem daar's ook 'n paar gedigte en 'n kort verhaal. Wie dit alles geskryf? Jy?
Ek het alles geskryf,
Wow.
ja.
Nou ja, baie geluk. Ons assosieer jou nou met landbou. Ons praat met landbouers, maar vir wie is hierdie dagboek?
Ons fokus die boek op landbou, vrouens in landbou, want dit is maar waar hy sy ontstaan en geskiedenis vandaan het. Maar hy is toepaslik vir elke vrou en eintlik kan die mans hom ook lees, want dit is nie, soos ek gesê het, so sappige, ligte stukkies nie. Dit is diep stukke wat met baie denke gepaard gaan en dit wat ek daarin skryf is toepaslik vir of jy nou 'n man of 'n vrou is. Weet jy, die beginsels bly presies dieselfde.
En wie is jou vennote in hierdie dagboek?
Sanet Du Plessis doen vir my die uitleg en sy hanteer dan al die publikasie gedeelte en die druk en daai tipe van goed en ek het dan die res geskryf.
En wie maak dit moontlik om dit te druk?
So ons is gelukkig, ek het nog steeds vir Bayer wat dan nou Monsanto geïnkorporeer is, wat nog steeds aan boord is, wat dan 'n borg is. Dan het ek ook Afrikelp en Graan SA.
Nou goed, die groot vraag is wat kos dit en waar kan ons dit bestel?
Die boek is R120 en as jy nou buite die Pretoria omgewing is en ons moet hom vir jou pos, sal die posgeld ekstra wees en mense kan my direk kontak as hulle die boek wil bestel.
'n E-posadres?
E-posadres is magda.du.toit@outlook.com.
@outlook.com. Nou ja, kom ons herhaal net, dis magda.du.toy. magda.du@outlook.com. Daar sy en dit is vir die bestelling van hierdie pragtige dagboek natuurlik vir 2021, iets vir almal.
net 'n fout. Grow more with less.
Now, last time we looked at the statistics, and those statistics hopefully was an eye-opener to a lot of viewers when it comes to why it's important to have a solid foundation for your home to be a place of safety and security and a safe haven for you and your family. But now, where do we even begin? Where do we start with having a safe haven, turning your home into a secure place where you can feel safe? And a lot of people think that security doors and guard dogs and having a weapon, that's how I'm going to keep my home safe. But that is one aspect. You see, when we look at having a safe environment, having a safe home, there's actually a three-dimensional approach. There's three aspects that we need to look at. And these three aspects that I want to look at is, first of all, psychological. Now, what do I mean with psychological? The psychological aspect of home defense means that you need to get inside the mind of the intruder, inside the mind of the criminal. You need to demotivate them, because a demotivated criminal is less likely to take action on their wants and their needs and their intentions than one that is highly motivated. And you demotivate a criminal by making it more and more difficult for them to get into your property, to get into your home. Because the longer they take, the more time they waste, and time is the biggest tool that they have to their disposal. The more rushed they are, the less time they have in order to break in, the more the tension is upon them, and the more the tension is upon them, the more they're likely to make mistakes and waste more of their own time. And that is how you get into the psychological aspect. You're basically making it more and more difficult and harder for them to get into your property. You're making the effort much more than the payoff. So the payoff is much less for them to break in, and the effort to get in there is much higher. The second aspect I want to talk about is the personal. Now, when I talk about the personal aspect of home defense, this is where we're talking about being mentally prepared. And not just being mentally prepared yourself, but knowing how to use a weapon, for instance, knowing the self-defense tactics and techniques that is available, and also having a backup plan in place. What do you do if plan A and plan B doesn't work? What are your backup plans? And do you have those in place in the first place? Now, looking at the psychology and the personal, you can know how to use a weapon. You can be very proficient at using a weapon and knowing all the ins and outs of it. But if you yourself are not in a psychological sound mentality, it's not going to help to know how to use a weapon, because you're not going to think straight in order to shoot straight, so to speak. So those are the first two aspects that we need to look at. The psychological aspect, getting inside the mind of the criminal, and secondly, the personal aspect, how you are preparing yourself. Do you have the personal skills in order to defend yourself, which also goes back to your own personal psychological aspect of defense. And then we're looking at the third aspect, which is the physical. What weapons do you have? Do you have a guard dog? Are there security gates and burglar proofing on your windows and your doors? Do you have security systems? Do you have armed response? Do you have electric fencing around your property? Those are the physical aspects that most people think that is what home defense is all about. But those are only tools at your disposal, and it starts with the mind and the personality and how you combine all three of these in order to make for a safe and sound, secure home environment.
Wil u 'n toptrop hê? BioBoost is 'n gebalanseerde voedingsaanvulling wat u sal help om die diere se volle potensiaal te bereik. BioBoost help om die diere se reproduksie, produksie en immuniteit te verbeter. Voor u 'n voedingsaanvulling kies, kyk eers watter produk die meeste regmerkies het. Kies BioBoost en sluit vandag by die Toptrop span aan. Beskikbaar by u dieregesondheidverskaffer of vra u beheeragent.
'n Nuwe boerdery kan 'n vreesaanjaende affære wees. Om nie eers te praat van die finansiering daarvan nie. Moenie maandag se episode van Plaas TV misloop nie, wanneer ons met Nieke Groenewald hieroor gesels. Tot dan, geniet jou naweek en bly warm.